Mabuhay, Kamustika. Welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Even many years before I got married, I wonder how it would go if I was to propose marriage to a woman, if it ever got that far. I hadn't had a relationship in a very long time, as you can tell by some of my other videos, but I couldn't help but think ahead. What happens if something did happen, we got serious, and I had proposed? I was a little bit nervous about how that would go. I had seen some elaborate proposals that seemed to get more bizarre all the time, like people being underwater, people jumping out of a plane, some kind of method apparently trying to be unique. As a sports fan, I'm well aware of proposals at sporting events. Sometimes those are on TV. I have to assume the men were absolutely sure the woman they were proposing to would accept their proposal, or they were maybe trying to overwhelm her with the proposal so that she would be unable to say no. And I would certainly not recommend doing that. By the way, please share your personal experience with your wife in proposing in the comments section if you are interested in doing that. I'm sure there are as many ways to propose as there are couples. Now, I absolutely did not want to do something wild, and I did not want to put my wife on the spot, making her uncomfortable. I didn't consider myself as someone who, is very creative and would come up with a creative proposal. I just didn't know how I would do that, and yeah, I worried about that a little bit. And of course, nobody wants to get rejected. Excuse me, that's a 12-month cough. At some point, I'm not going to be responsible for this thing. It just doesn't seem like there's anything I can do. But here's how I decided the time was right to propose to my wife and get that all over with. I met her in person for the first time on April 25th of 2015. And we were going to meet one of her sisters in the Philippines on the very next day, I think it was, the 26th. I think that was a Sunday. My interview was, my appointment in Manila was on Monday the 27th. So, it's possible I let her see what this ring looked like. I'm kind of proud of it. There's all kinds of ways to figure out what to spend. I had a certain amount of money in the bank, kind of for that purpose. I hadn't earmarked it for anything else. And so when I decided to get a ring, I knew exactly where to go for the money for that. So she might have seen it, she might not have. And she probably knew I was going to try to propose the next day. I just had no idea how I was going to do that. I didn't want it to be awkward. I didn't want it to seem like I was unprepared. Just didn't know how to do it. But, things worked out. While at her sister's house, my back pain began to flare up. I'd never spent so much time on a plane as when I went to the Philippines. From here in Nebraska, it was 4 flights to get to Davao, 3 to get to Manila. Excuse me, that Manila flight is 14 and a half hours long. I didn't bring any pain pills. I was standing, and I was pretty miserable. So while we were eating lunch one day, my back started to hurt, and I was standing up and rubbing it and walking around and grimacing in pain. So, I finally broke down and told my wife, look, I'm in a lot of pain. What should I do? So my wife said that she would go find something in her sister's house to rub on my back, and I could lie down on her sister's bed in her sister's bedroom. Well, my wife got me to lay down on the bed on my stomach, and she probably found a fan nearby and set that up on me, and took this mentholated ointment, I think it was, and rubbed this into my sore back, give me a nice long massage, and she probably even stayed there for a while with me and lied down with me. And as I lay there, it dawned on me that this was going to have to be part of my proposal. After a while, I got up out of bed, and if I remember correctly, my wife and I were talking to her sister, and we were about to leave her home, and I had not proposed yet. Maybe I was still trying to, stall a little bit, but I told my wife before we left that I had something to tell her. She likely suspected what was coming up next, and I told my wife that I wanted to propose to her, but didn't know how or when. And after having come to the Philippines for the purpose of marrying her in just a couple of weeks, as I lay in that bed with her rubbing that ointment on my back, trying to make me feel as comfortable as possible, I realized that this was the type of caring woman that I wanted in my life. And I told her that. I said, hon, maybe I called her by her first name at that time, Isa, I really appreciate what you did for me here. You're taking care of me. It's your idea. You're taking the initiative to make me feel better. I really feel good about this. This is the type of kind and caring woman that, every man, including myself, wants to have in their life. And so, at that point I asked her if she would marry me, and she said yes. I don't even remember what happened after that. But of course I gave her the ring, and come to think of it, she has an aunt that lives nearby, this sister, and we went straight to her house. I still have a picture of that. And it was so hot. I know exactly what I was wearing that day. It was so hot, the picture was steamy, but this aunt was the first person other than her sister that was living there that we went over and said, look, my wife said I'm engaged to be married. So, and this woman was at the wedding of one of her brothers that we went to just a month ago, and so I think that was the first time we had seen her since we let her know that we were going to be married, and I had proposed to my wife. So if you're interested in marrying a Filipina, and I hope you are, at some point you'll need to get around to asking her. And so my advice would be, number one, don't overdo the proposal. I think the more elaborate it gets, maybe, I don't know, maybe the less sincere it seems. I don't want to criticize anybody if they've jumped out of an airplane and proposed to someone or did it at a sporting event. But, I would advise, don't get too elaborate about it. Just keep it simple, and don't overdo it. Do tell her why you love her. Do tell her why you want to propose to her, why you want to spend the rest of your life with her. And then number three, find a way to do it without putting her on the spot. Love Beyond the Sea is to help foreigners know how to have a good marriage with a Filipina. And because it is different, you could be nervous about how to go about proposing, and that's or just having the whole marital relationship with the Filipina. That's where I hope I can be of some help. And I always welcome more subscribers to Love Beyond the Sea. I used to be nervous about how to propose to a woman, but I can say that it all worked out with my Love Beyond the Sea.